Welcome back to Decleated. We are here with a brand new season of NFL football. I am your host, John Restrepo, here with my co-host, Seamus Digan. Seamus, how are you?
I'm fantastic, especially after the fantastic week one of football that we had. It was a long time coming this offseason, a lot of exciting moves, and a lot of anticipation building it, and it lived up to the hype in week one. We had great games across the board, including my Green Bay Packers with a fantastic, to continue my use of that word, win over the Detroit Lions this week.
Yeah, you couldn't have asked for a better lead up to the regular season also. Obviously, the Micah Parsons trade happening. I think it was almost exactly a week before the season started, getting him ready, like all the excitement of him being a part of that defense that is already so young and promising. I feel like that energy and that like the feeling in the building just carried over into that first game against a very, very good Lions team.
I think you're 1,000% right because the feeling I felt when I heard the news about Micah Parsons was euphoria. I felt like I was floating. Like speechless doesn't quite do it justice. It's one of those things, and everybody has said it for the last week and a half. It's like the move that just doesn't get made. It's the type of player that doesn't get traded. These guys don't become available, and it's still, even thinking about it now, I'm kind of getting riled up thinking about the way that I felt in that moment about Michael
Yeah.
Parsons becoming a Green Bay Packer, and that euphoric feeling transferred over directly to Lambeau Field. Obviously, he got a big welcome when he stepped foot on the field during pregame warmups. Again, when he stepped foot on the field on his first third down of the game, and I think just holistically, you could feel the energy in the field. I could feel it in my basement. That first half of football might have been the most excited and the most relaxed and just pure, again, euphoria that I felt since 2 years ago. Since 2 years ago, the Cowboy playoff game. Like, it was the most perfect football you could have, basically. Which, as a football fan, like I was almost in disbelief as to what I was watching. Every fan of every team waits till week one to the best case scenario of their team to set foot on that football field and everything to go exactly to plan. That's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, you got everything you could have hoped for. Offensively started fast. Defense holding what we saw to be, again, one of the most prolific offenses of last year, holding him to what, 6 points in the first half? It's
Yeah, and
incredible.
and truthfully, it was 6 points for the entire game. I mean, there was a garbage time touchdown with a fantastic one-handed catch in the back of the end zone, but
Yeah.
otherwise, like the defense was near flawless for most of the game. And I mean, the same can be said for the offense, especially in the first half. They were the only offense in the NFL this week to not be penalized a single time, which I didn't
Wow.
realize at the time, even watching the game. But sitting back, you think, oh, wow, yeah, you know what? It did really feel, again, like a flawless game. And I think that's one of the things, too, that I noticed. Like, it's funny how you tend to be less critical when things are going your way, right? Like, when
Oh,
if things are
yeah.
going right, you're kind of in a flow state and you're just happy to take it as it comes. And, you're just happy about all the good that's happening. You're not being super critical, which is, I
Yeah.
guess that's just natural. But
Seamus, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I am just thinking in my head the duality of this episode is going to be unbelievable. But I'm going to let you have your moment. Please
Well, you know
continue.
what's funny? Every year we do this, and I know we do it multiple times a year, but it just, it happens every year where we are on just such opposite trajectories and different
Yes.
playing fields. So
Oh
we're
my
going to
God.
keep pretending like it's a short term thing, but, for now, this is the reality we live in.
For sure.
But it was one of those games where everything felt like it was going your way. Like I said, especially in the first half, the offense kind of hit a little bit of a speed bump in the second half. There were a couple more punts than there were in the first half, and they weren't quite as efficient as they were. But that's to be expected, right? The Lions are still a good football team, and they still have a good defense, and things happen. But overall, the tone of this game is what I was the most impressed with. Obviously, the highlight and the storyline coming out of this game is Micah Parsons and the defense and how dominant they were for the entire duration of the game against a team that went 15-1 last year, had like averaged 30 something points a game last year as an offense. and you held them to 6 points. Like that's the headline, but I think it's deeper than that, right? They were aggressive on defense for sure, but they were swarming to the football. It was team defense. They were smothering the Lions. The running game, Jahmyr Gibbs could go nowhere. That was a two-headed monster backfield last year between Montgomery and Gibbs that was incredible and near unstoppable in certain games last year. And
Yeah, I don't think either of them had over 30 yards in the game either. I think, like you said, Gibbs was like 10 carries for 19 yards, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then I just think it was crazy also, like, the amount, like you said, the swarming defense. I didn't end up tuning into the Packer game until right before the Micah Parsons' first sack as a Packer. But, I had seen a bunch of clips that they were kind of rolling through of like some game recaps, and like you could see the impact that he was having, and the rest of the D-line for that matter was having on Jared Goff in the passing game. Because I feel like they were just constantly pushing the pocket, constantly disrupting throws and disrupting, running plays and stuff like that. So just being able to play complementary defense too. And because I'm sure, when you're wreaking that much havoc up front, it just kind of trickle effects into the rest of the, the linebackers and the secondary as well.
And the other thing too, you just hit on with the Micah Parsons sack was it was all timely as well, right? Like that sack was not insignificant. It came at a pivotal time in the game where if the Lions went on to score in that drive, there's a chance they make it a little bit of a competitive game. But Micah Parsons comes up big on a third down to make a statement, right? Like that felt like it just took any remaining air in the Lions' lungs and drained it. It was fantastic. And again, another transition where you're seeing, hey, like half of these defense last year when he came in, we saw a change and it was positive. But there were a lot of blitzes, which we liked because they were complex and they were unique, new schemes, right? And it was refreshing. The difference this week that I saw was we were getting after Jared Goff and we were creating havoc, like you said, and pressure with a 4-man rush.
Yeah.
Without bringing the blitz and letting Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper do their thing in coverage. Like that's the part that makes me excited is when you have LVN and Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons on the field. And Micah Parsons is going up against a Pro Bowl, all-pro right tackle in Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
And still creating pressure. Maybe, he didn't have 4 sacks. He didn't blow you away on the stat sheet. A, he played less than 50% of the snaps. But B, he and the others collectively as a unit wreaked havoc, that's all I care about. It's a team game. Would I like Micah Parsons to become, the next all-pro defensive end in for the Green Bay Packers? Of course I would. Would I like him to be a Hall of Famer eventually and he plays that great? I would. Do I really care who has the sack at the end of the day as long as we win? No, I don't. So, that's the part that makes me happy too, right? It's these other guys who are supposed to be the rising stars. And we say this a lot about quarterbacks, right? Like the thing with Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady. Well, Tom Brady always elevated the talent around him, right? He had plumbers catching footballs for him is a lot of the argument, right? Like he elevated guys. And who did Rodgers never had anybody either. He never had the first round picks, but he wasn't able to translate that into Super Bowls. I think it's a similar thing you could say with Micah Parsons, right? Like I don't necessarily care if he's not the one getting production because he's getting double, triple teams sometimes. But if because of that impact, other guys are getting one-on-one opportunities, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
He's elevating the play of the players around him. He's going to demand a lot out of the players around him. So and he's going to want them to be successful as well because that means if they can't double team everybody, so if they want to double team Rashawn Gary because he's been wreaking havoc all game, all of a sudden Micah Parsons got a one-on-one.
And then he gets freed up. Then he starts wreaking his havoc. Yep.
So that's the stuff that excites me.
And that's winning football too. That's awesome.
And it's a brand of football that I've been dying for from the Packers. We've seen it in bursts here and there throughout the last couple of seasons. But this is the kind of defense that, like, if you play like this week in and week out, that is a Super Bowl caliber defense.
Oh, for sure.
Yep. Undoubtedly. And then, stay in the trenches on the offensive side of the ball. No sacks. And to be fair, Jordan Love wasn't under pressure very much at all in this game. He had gorgeous pockets to throw from. The running backs are doing a fantastic job in pass protection, picking up, rushers and blitzers and things like that. But the way that we were able to just stunt this aggressive and honestly dominant Lions defensive front for the most of this game. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson was a non-factor I understand that he's
Yeah,
also
you didn't
coming
hear
back
his
from an
name
injury.
once. You did
Not
not
once.
hear his name once.
No. So that's the kind of thing where, again, I think we hear this a lot. Like in a good game, not only, like I said before, are you not as critical, but you may not hear people's names, because when you hear people's names, usually it's because they're doing something wrong, right?
Especially on the offensive line. You that's the one position where if you're not talking about them, you know they did their job.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So, again, those are the types of things that make me very excited about this team. The last thing offensively that I'll say, I know that last year I did a lot of harping on Matt LaFleur and his play calling, right? And we've had games where he sticks with the run and he runs the play action, and he mixes plays well, and there's creativity. And then there's other games where it's straight drop back and we're trying to let Jordan play hero ball. This game, I don't think there was a lot of overt creativity or misdirection or anything, which I honestly kind of liked. Frankly, in the beginning, in the first half, a lot of the success that they had was on straight 5-7 step dropbacks, or 3-step drops from gun, and that was okay, and it was successful, and I'm fine with that. The thing that Matt LaFleur deserves a lot of praise for, because I have criticized him on this podcast before about this, is he stuck with the run in the first and second half despite the fact that it was utterly unsuccessful. It was unsuccessful. There was one drive, honestly, we went 3 and out because we ran 3 times in a row, which I didn't love. But you know what? I can't have it both ways. I can't cry and complain that he doesn't stick with it when it's not working, and then get upset when he does that. So you know what? I just took it on the chin when that happened. Mm-hmm. But then in the second half, he stuck with it. And you know what happened? Josh Jacobs starts to break a 5-yard run, a 7-yard run. Now it's his first down. And it kept drives moving when the passing game wasn't quite clicking. So, congratulations to Matt LaFleur. I have a lot of respect for the way that he continued to stick with the running game in week 1 when it wasn't very successful. So I think he deserves a little pat on the back for that. The other thing, again, one of those things that I have been heavily critical of the last couple of years is special teams. We didn't talk about Rick Pisaccia once. We didn't talk about McManus once. We didn't talk about Jaden Reed fumbling punt returns. Like, it was flawless. You've got Savion Williams returning kicks, looking great. Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed returning punts that are actually putting our offense in a position to succeed. Daniel Whalen, the newly re-signed punter, is kicking bombs, 65, 70-yard punts, multiple in the game. Like, it was just clicking on all cylinders. Brandon McManus, 3 for 3 on extra points, 2 for 2 on field goals. Like, again, this sounds like silly, but as a Packer fan, it's these little things that have added up over time that eat away at you. So I'm trying not to take them for granted. I'm trying to give credit where credit is due, because the special teams had a strong hand in the dominant performance that we had on Sunday.
For sure. It's a whole nother phase of football, too. And especially with some of the kicking woes that you've had in recent years, I'm sure. Well, it does seem like now you have your guy and someone that you could really rely on for, at least a couple of years, you hope. I feel like it's so underrated to have a kicker that you could just not even think about. And again, just not even feel the need to mention any other time. But clearly when it matters most, these guys are uber important to their team.
Oh yeah, they were great. I even said to my dad, I have a little residual PTSD from the Anders Carlson days. I mean, it's through no fault of his own, because McManus missed 1 kick of all year last year. But when he lined up for that first field goal on Sunday, I was shaking in my boots a little bit. I was nervous. So, I'm a little scarred, but we're getting through it. The last thing I'll say, which is not directly related to this game, but just kind of came up because it was week 1 and the first game of the season. The Packers have season-long captains for the first time since 2022, and they are wearing captain's patches for the first time in the Matt LaFleur coaching era, which is interesting.
Oh, that is interesting.
It's a change. Even during the McCarthy era, they flip-flopped. Rodgers was obviously a year-long captain every year.
I guess I never noticed that they didn't have any captain's patches. I would have never noticed that.
Yeah, if you look up, especially obviously during the LaFleur era, but Rodgers almost never had the captain's patch, but he had worn it previously in McCarthy.
Because I could picture it during the McCarthy eras. So that is interesting.
Yeah, but they're back. I don't know if what the rhyme or reason is for that, but I'm excited about it. It's a cool change. But the thing that I notice about it, which is it's exciting, right? It makes sense because we are the youngest team in the NFL, is that it's cool to see how few stars every single one of those captains has on those badges. Like, they are freshly minted new stars. Jordan Love, first-year captain. Tucker Kraft, first-year captain. Rashawn Gary, first-year captain. Like,
And who knows? You get to see how long, a couple years in, how many of them get, filled out, get the gold captain's patch. That's the hope, is to have as many of those as possible.
exactly. It felt like the crowning of, like, officially, here's the new era, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, the last couple of years we've been the youngest team in the NFL, and we're developing, and we're young, and we're fun, and we're frisky, and we're starting to get a little bit of hype and buzz and whatever. Now it feels like we're here. We're at the adults table now. We might still be the youngest there,
Yeah.
but we are here now.
You've matured enough to be there. Yeah.
Correct. Like, that's what it feels like. The C on their chest this week, to me, was not just that they are leaders, right? I knew we had leaders on the team. It was that we are role models for the league, not just our team.
Yeah.
We are the standard. We are raising.
And I think this win is a statement to that too, because a lot of people had put the Lions in that category of, like, they're the big boys. They're, the ones to be messed with in the league right now. They're one of the league's best. And to do what you guys did, I mean, like you said, for the most of the game, you dominated them on all phases of the game. So I think that just speaks a lot to, like, okay, no, we're here. And it's not just because of, adding one player. It helps, but, the rest of the team is matured enough too. And, like, we are confident in our guys that we can be Super Bowl contenders.
1,000%, 1,000%. And I think that's not to say that I think the Lions are going to have a down year or that they're going to be terrible this year. I don't. I'm sure they'll figure it out.
It's a divisional game at your rival's place too, which happened to be a phenomenal team. Like, there's a very good chance that they could turn around and whoop the Bears in week 2 to get a little bit of revenge because they couldn't get anything going in week 1.
Right, exactly. And look, they've got 2 new coordinators on both sides of the ball. They've got a lot of adjusting to do. I'm sure every team has a lot of growth right between week 1 and week 2. They say that's like one of the biggest jumps in the NFL.
Yeah, with the shorter preseason. Yep.
So, everybody's got to kind of get the goosebumps and the butterflies out, and they're on to the next, I'm sure. However, that is not to say that I'm not glad that we didn't got them out of the way. Like, I'm glad that we got this out of the way. We took care of business at home, and it is what it is. So I'm thrilled with the way that went, and I mean, it's great.
For sure. And I mean, now you got a big matchup week 2. I mean, you got another team that, has some of those Super Bowl aspirations. They made it to the conference championship last week. They started off with a week 1 win against my Giants, which we'll get into right after I get your thoughts on this matchup. But, on paper, supposed to be a phenomenal game between, I guess technically Washington is one of the older rosters in the league.
I think they are the oldest.
But if they feel like younger, because again they're a team that haven't been in the Super Bowl bubble for long, and Jaden Daniels is the face of the franchise and super young, I think it could be slated to be a great matchup in week 2. What are your thoughts going into that game? Like, how confident are you in the Packers? I know last year you kind of had that feeling of, like, I feel like we're capable of beating anyone, and I'm sure, like, now it's even more so the case. But, obviously a team that probably didn't play their best game against the Giants, just having, watched that performance. They left a lot to be had on the table. They could have thrown 35 up on the board on us, I'm sure. But obviously a team that needs to work out some of those kinks as well, but still a really good competitor. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's not ideal in the fact that you get a tight turnaround week 1 to week 2, right? Like, you'd like to see the team on normal rest, especially with an impact player like Micah Parsons coming in. You'd like to see him get the full week of practice in. Obviously, it is what it is, and you make the best out of it. And thankfully, we are home, and it's not a trip, especially to the West Coast or what have you. So I think that's an advantage there. But yeah, I think to your point, this is another chance to, like, really prove it, right? Like, week 1 was not a fluke. It was not extra motivation because of Micah Parsons or because it was a divisional matchup or whatever other, reason that you can come up with to say that was a one-off or that's the best they could possibly play and they're not going to do that consistently, right? You go down there on Thursday night back to Lambeau and you punch Washington in the mouth and you have 2 statement wins back-to-back, all of a sudden you put the NFL on notice. Like, this is not just the NFC North anymore. This is not just the conference. This is the league. Like, like I said, if you punch Washington in the mouth on Thursday night, this is, hey, now we are Super Bowl contenders for real. I think that's the statement you make. I mean, these are two teams, right, that like were 1 and 2 wins away from the Super Bowl last year, respectively. So I think it says a lot. And to your point, Washington is the other up and comer on the block. They may not be the youngest, but they're the other team that you think of in a similar bucket, right? Like who's kind of on the fringe. They're knocking on the door. And so I think of that kind of meme with the gravedigger, right? Like knocking on the doors, like, all right, the lines are crossed out. Washington's next. Like I'm almost, by the time I wake up tomorrow, we're on to Washington. Like business as usual. We're back. We celebrated. We had fun. It was great. I enjoyed it, but you got to do it again. You're only as good as your last game. So like, we got to put our best foot forward and continue to build on it. I'm sure there are things we can improve on, right? Like Jordan Love had some throws he would like to have back. I'd like to not see any of those this week. But I'd like to see the offense stay consistent, to put points up on the board evenly throughout the game, right? And the defense to come back with that same aggressiveness and passion and swarming to the ball and that attitude, that nastiness. I like that. I want to see that again. So I think those are the things. I think you're going to have to take care of business, right? Like they're not going to be able to just skate by. And this is a chance under the national television primetime lights to show America what you're made of. So I really hope they take advantage. I'm excited. I can't wait. It should be a great game, right, for everybody to watch. So I'm very excited. And we're wearing the icy whites, so it'll be cool.
Ooh, nice. That's exciting.
But this is a fantastic transition. We will not get this alley-oop very many more times this season.
I didn't realize until realizing that you guys played the Commanders in week 2 how seamless this could be. So yes, definitely set the stage up for moving over to the Giants. But we're picking up. The problem is we're picking up right where we left off last year, which is not what you want. Which is not what you want to hear, especially if you've listened to any of the episodes last year. Most of it is just me complaining about how the season's been over and how. I'm ready for next season, looking for the offseason, whatever. Seamus, I think that at about 2:30 Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, the Giants season ended. When the Giants had 8 straight plays within the 10-yard line, first and goal, second, third, fourth, penalty, reset the down, first, second, third, fourth, and goal, and could not get a touchdown on any of those plays, there's your season. I mean, it was just a pathetic showing across the board. As you said for the Packers, that to have a pretty much perfect game for a week 1, each phase of the team being, having something positive to say, something that is almost flawless. You could say the complete and utter opposite for the Giants. Completely flawed across the board. The only area that I will give credit to this team is on the defensive side. For the most part, you held the Washington Commanders, who have a great offense, to 14 points until there was 8 minutes left in the game. And then, obviously they weren't able, they ended up fumbling the ball, gave the ball back to Washington, and they ended up, running up the score a little bit. There was also that fluky, intentional grounding that Daniels had that left a couple points on the board going into halftime, which got a little lucky there, but even still, even though the defense did play better, I mean, I think the biggest takeaway that I got from this game, while there is a lot of X and O stuff that just looked sloppy and looked a mess, and I will get to that, it's just no physicality, no effort, no nothing. They were getting pushed around and letting the Commanders bounce off of tackles. I don't know how many second down and 20s and 16s and 15s that were in this game, but there were way too many where we just gave up 15 yards after getting a huge sack or a big play or a huge penalty on them that could have stuttered their drive. They instantly give up a big play, have the guy dead to rights in their arms that they could tackle, and just let him slip through. That was the most frustrating part, especially on the defensive side, was there was no, get this guy to the ground, physicality, let's run through these people. I mean, there was one play too where Abdul Carter could have got his first career sack and laid out Jaden Daniels, and he, has a free rush and just kind of gets deer in headlights and like puts his arms up. Like, what are we doing, guys? I know he's a rookie. I know he's young.
Over.
It's not great. But, that's stuff that I'm sure, you see on film and I'm like, just attack the guy, So that, and I mean, now to go to the offensive side of the ball, in terms of a physicality standpoint, the offensive line, which has been the theme for the Giants for almost half of my lifetime now, which is insane to say, but it has been over a decade. They are just soft. They cannot bench press a guy forward. I've never seen it looks like they're playing a different sport. They're in a different league. They can't move anyone. I've never seen a team so inept without one starter on their offensive line. It just blows my mind how crippling the loss of Andrew Thomas can be for this team. And just because of that trickled into everything. They couldn't run the ball. Russell Wilson didn't really have a lot of time to throw. And when he did, he looked lost and like skittish in the pocket. We signed this guy to be a headstrong, steady-minded veteran that won't look like Daniel Jones and get flustered in the pocket and whatever. Freaking Russell Wilson is doing 180, 360 spins in the pocket to try to escape. How is that poised? What are we doing? It blows my mind. Again, like, across the board, this is not just an offensive line thing. This is not just a Russell Wilson thing. We had receivers. I mean, Malik Neighbors, I'm worried about this thing imploding real freaking quick because, I mean, I get he's the competitor, he's whatever, and I'm going to have a whole little segment, too, about some of the post-game comments that were made, and I am not buying any of this shit. I cannot... I'm running so low on patience, and you will know what I mean by this real soon. But I mean, Neighbors had a drop. Theo Johnson, who's supposed to be this tight end phenom, or this late round steal that Dable loves, all these guys that Dable loves, cannot catch a freaking ball, man. He is just awful. Left and right cannot catch the ball, and it's really just alarming how bad the coaching is. All of these things that I have said, the lack of physicality, the lack of tackling, the lack of like fundamental things like this, that's on the coaching. Even the disgusting goal line sequence that I had told you about, that's coaching. That's play calling. On first and goal in the red zone, you might not get it. That's fine. But show some balls and hand the football off to Cam Scatabo or whoever and try to power it into the end zone. Do not run a play action where your backup left tackle is running a route. Don't do this gimmicky shit. What do we do? Like, why are we doing this? No wonder Malik Neighbors is pouting on the sideline because you're running a route with an offensive lineman instead of him in the red zone. Or leak a tight end, like something. It's no confidence in their players or just the scheme. This did not look like a team that was built around Russell Wilson. For Brian Dable, the offensive guru that he's supposed to be, did not build an offense around Russell Wilson. He kept the same exact bland offenses last year where we take occasional deep shots to Malik Neighbors. We throw underneath to Wan'Dale Robinson because he can make a guy miss. And, we have a couple, zone runs thrown in here and there, which inevitably get stuffed. A couple screens that don't work. And that was it. That is not Russell Wilson's offense. Russell Wilson needs run game, checkdowns, and constantly peppering down the field to stretch out that defense. And there was none of that.
We've talked about this for I guess the entirety of Daboll's career, right? And we've given him opportunity after opportunity, and we've made excuse after excuse. It's Daniel Jones, it's the quarterback, it's the offensive line. They don't have a running game. They can't get a push. They have no weapons. Well, they got a weapon. Then they got a running back. Then they made free agent signings and drafted and tried to bolster the offensive line. Then they got rid of the quarterback, and they signed one, and they drafted one. And they
it's just passing blame around. It was the quarterback's fault. It was the lack of weapons fault. It was this fault. And
you know
it's
what?
still a problem.
And I was the biggest Daboll fan. I was the one last year trying to be the voice of reason when you were saying fire everybody, clear house, and I was trying to say, look, I think he's the right guy. I think you leave him there, but at some point, like it comes down to him at some point. And to your point, you have to put your players in a position to succeed, especially when you don't have the best players in the world. Like you have to do something schematically.
Unfortunately, they are the common denominator also. Like, have been around for all of this.
Right.
Why are all these players leaving New York and just instantly becoming better? It has to be the coaching. They're not utilizing their players properly. Or there's really no other way for me to spin it. And then for me to get to what I was kind of alluding to before with some of these post-game answers and like stuff like that, if I have to hear another time from Brian Daboll, this is all I heard. We didn't play good enough. We got to go watch the film. We got to go watch the film. We got to go watch the film. What is the film going to tell you? It's not Russ's fault. It's not his fault. It's your fault. Get these guys motivated to play. If you have not proven to be a scheme guru, play calling mastermind. If not, rally the team. Be a leader of men. These just look like a collection of people right now, not a team. It's so mind-numbing to me. And then in this post-game press conference, I have to listen to just the cookie-cutter Russell Wilson. Oh, well, you know what? We competed our butts off today. We left it all out on the field. That's a quote. Competed? You guys didn't show up. Competed our butts off, left it all on the field. If that is you putting your heart and soul into... The only heart and soul I saw was 2 plays of Cam Scatterbo blocking the shit out of someone and running through a cornerback's face. Like, that was it. And that was one player for 2 plays. Oh, I know. That's going to be a ticking time bomb, but...
No, I don't blame you, the post-game comments. I mean, that's frustrating as hell, and I don't know if this is one of the ones you're waiting to bring up, but for the fact that for Brian Daboll to be non-committal about his quarterback post-game after week 1 is beyond me. Beyond me. You want to talk about a lack of leadership.
Everyone is getting worse and worse behind the podium, man. I'm telling you. In this regime, I mean, again, we got to go back and watch the film. We got to go back to watch the film. He's got neighbors, he's force-feeding neighbors. Oh, just tell them that we have to go watch the film still. We still have to go watch the film. Because he was saying that stuff too. He's like, yeah, we're just 2 competitors, whatever. We're just not on the same page. We're not on the same page. I mean, no one, it just looks like no one gives a shit. It really just looks like a lack of effort. And yeah, I mean, the whole quarterback thing too just blows my mind because it's just... and then he kind of backtracked on that, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, where he was like, oh, no, Russ is our starter, obviously in, the heat of the moment, right after a loss, oh, no, that was said, so it's just so, but then you leave the door open for all these narratives to start, and it's like, why are we doing this to ourselves? Yeah. Why do we want more attention on just an awful product?
And we ask ourselves constantly, can the quarterbacks survive in the New York market? It goes the same for head coaches. I mean, maybe even more so. They're the face of the franchise in terms of public perception and facing the media and the speaking for the organization. They're really the mouthpiece for the organization. You can't just be recklessly saying things like that after a week 1 loss about your veteran potential future Hall of Fame quarterback that you just brought in. I get that Jackson Dart is your guy and clearly your golden child that you're itching to let out of the bag, but if you're gonna do it, just do it, and if you're not, don't, because I think that's the more responsible thing. Don't do it. But
I
I
agree,
just don't, I
but
don't get it. Like you got to know what you're saying.
I don't know. But then it gets to a point too where like because you say things like this and you're just not taking accountability. Like if he got up to the podium and said, you know what, the play calling sucked. I did not, we didn't do, or maybe not, because I've heard he's not calling the plays anymore, because he's playing the annual game of, oh, let's give the play calling back to Mike Kafka until we have to rip it out of his hands with my bare mitts because their play calling so bland. I have to take it back. I got to call plays. I have to make this a new storyline for this middle of the season because inevitably that will happen too. It's just I don't understand. I also have no confidence in either of these coordinators. Kafka has been the same thing for the last 3 years, and he hasn't shown me anything. Again, the fact that he gets the play calling duties ripped away from him and then randomly bestowed again at the beginning of next year is not very relieving. It just sounds like he's a Dable yes man or whatever. And then Bowen, I guess has yet to be seen. We'll see what happens the rest of the season. But I'm not seeing anything crazy creative either. Also, I would have loved to see a little more Abdul Carter involved in the game plan this week, but I digress. One thing that I did want to say too, kind of separate from all this, I'm watching the Minnesota Vikings play on Monday Night Football. They are a team with a offensive coach who is supposed to be a quarterback whisperer and an offensive guru, who I would say is a quarterback whisperer and a quarterback guru. A very similar coach to what Brian Dable is supposed to be. In an eerily similar situation, I will say Minnesota's roster is better than the Giants' roster, obviously.
Undoubtedly.
They've made it to the playoffs last year and so on and so forth. But we see a coach who was supposed to, excel at tailoring his offense to quarterback skill sets. No matter who the quarterback is, will mold the offense to their skill sets. And we've seen that coach do that with Josh Dobbs and Sam Darnold and all these other guys, and now J.J. McCarthy, a rookie coming in with all this pressure, all this whatever, and them being able to score at least one touchdown and come away with a huge win, divisional game week 1. And they are also missing their starting left tackle, who is, a key piece to their offense, in Christian Darrisaw. The Giants also were without their starting left tackle and Andrew Thomas, and are also supposed to have a very young, promising defense with a dominant defensive front, like the Giants. The Minnesota Vikings are what the Giants should be, but they're not. And it's just watching this. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, with bad coaching, sinks to the floor after the awful first half that he had against Chicago. And we're already calling J.J. McCarthy a bust, and the headlines are completely in the other direction. With good coaching like we saw, that narrative got flipped. They got a crazy win, and I just don't see that with the Giants. I don't see that with this regime. There's nothing tangible there. It's all the what ifs and everything. And let's just call a spade a spade. This will be my last home run point here, is that these players, these young guys that are being brought in, especially through the draft, just looking worse and worse the more the days go on. I mean, the 2024 draft class is just abysmal. Deonte Banks doesn't see the field anymore. John Michael Schmitz cannot move a guy in front of him. He is the least physical offensive lineman I have ever seen in my life. I can't believe it. And then not to mention Jalen Hyatt. All these, there's just, that whole draft class is just a disaster. And that's not even to go to talk about some of the other classes with Evan Neal's and the list goes on. It's just the personnel hasn't been there. These guys that they're handpicking, they're either not being coached right or they're just not good, and their talent evaluation is horrible. So, maybe my expectations were a little high. Maybe just because of the off season, everything going on, I was getting a little too excited for this game. But I mean, just to at least compete in week one. I mean, for me to just look at this, and I mean, the schedule's not getting any easier. It really isn't. We got a game against the Cowboys coming up. What do you want me to do about that? I mean, I what am I supposed to expect? I think the Commanders are a better team than the Cowboys, but how am I going to have any confidence after what I just saw?
No, I don't blame you. Like you said, I think it may be the most difficult schedule in the NFL, if not its top three, based on last year's winning percentages. I mean, it's not going to get easier from here. And I think like two things can be true, right? Like maybe the expectations were too high. Maybe the hype train was going a little too fast in the offseason. I think it's not uncommon for that to happen, right? With a young team with a lot of promise and a lot of opportunities ahead of them. But at the same time, like the expectation for the level of play to still rise, even if it not to rise to that level that maybe you were expecting, but to rise is not an unrealistic expectation, I don't think. Again, new defensive coordinator, a lot of buzz and a lot of new pieces on defense to a defense that, truth be told, was fairly strong, at least in the front, 4, 5, 6, 7 players already. It only got stronger this offseason. I think it's reasonable to expect some flash plays. And I know Brian Burns had a couple sacks. And
yeah, he did. He was one of the lone bright spots.
Right. There's something to be said for that. But to the same point, right, like that's supposed to be the strength of this team while the offense kind of gets their feet under them and finds their own. But it didn't feel that way. I mean, again, I know they held the team to 14 points, but it wasn't like... Again, I don't think they were jumping off the screen. And I don't know
that,
they
weren't.
To your point, like, Brian Burns, he was good, but we knew he was good. Like, I'm waiting for Abdul Carter and Tyler Nubin and these other guys who are, like, supposed to be coming into their own to make the plays. Again, it's week one. I know. I get it.
I know.
It's overreaction
but
central.
It's the same thoughts that I have.
That's what I mean.
It really is.
So I think it's fair to have those thoughts, and to your point, like, this season is not about making the playoffs or, going 15-1. It's
no.
whatever it is now, 15-2. It's if you double your win total this year, that's a success. It's a difficult schedule, so the record is not exactly the end goal here. The goal is to get better and to see improvement, and we just didn't see that this week.
And that's where the problem is. It's like it just feels like a continuation of last year. It doesn't feel new. Again, the offense looks the same. The defense more or less looks the same. I mean, you got, coach, we got to make this, we got to change things. We can't just keep doing the same things with slightly different players and expecting a different result. I mean, player-wise, the offense is exactly the same besides Russell Wilson. There is no other starters on the offense that have changed. So, that's kind of what you expect when you have a bottom offense in the league last year and you switch out one player.
Right.
What do you think is going to happen?
What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result?
That's it. It's freaking delusion, man. So here we are. Again, unfortunate that this is already the sentiment after 1 week, but who knows? I mean, I think there's a good chance that if the Giants come out and drop another stinker against Dallas and Russell Wilson does not look good, I think we will be seeing Jackson Dart make a debut week 3, Sunday Night Football at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. Do I think that's the right decision? No, not at all. I think that is idiotic. But I think there's a real possibility because if we see 2 offensive stinkers by the Giants back-to-back week 1 and 2, the headhunters will be coming for you, Brian Dable. I don't control the New York media. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. But they will be coming out, and he's going to want to save his job. And he has made it so clear how much he loves Jackson Dart, and is going to, I mean, he's going to bet his job on the guy that he wants over, an aged 40-something-year-old quarterback. So, or maybe not 40 yet. He's not Aaron Rodgers, but, I'd rather be banking on that 40-year-old quarterback, to be honest, than what we have right now. But I digress. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, who knows? Dallas clearly is in a bit of a vulnerable state against, after losing Micah Parsons, but they also just went toe-to-toe with the Eagles. So I don't really know how to take that either. They're clearly better than I think we were giving them credit for. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if history serves itself in the last couple of years, I really do not want to waste my energy getting my hopes up to play against Dallas, because they've had our number for year in, year out now too. So, but we will see what happens. Let's hope that, Brian Daboll has a better game plan going forward, and, maybe he, really watched the film, because he loves to watch the film. Maybe he watched it and said, we're not being physical enough. We're not making plays. I made some mistakes, and I didn't really scheme us up very well, and has a little look in the mirror and is actually honest with himself and with his football team, and, does something about it. Because, if we're just going to play we're really trying our hardest out there, and, we just need to watch the film and get better day by day. I mean, that's just a load of horse shit. I'm sorry. Like, that's just fodder you feed the reporters. But if you're telling yourselves that in the building, you're screwed. You can't. You're beyond helping. And I will be counting down the days for a new head coach. Until then, we will see if Brian Daboll does look himself in the mirror before week 2, and if we. And how we fare, and if we are competitive, at least. That is the bare minimum that I can ask for, is that we compete in this game. And
which
with that,
I don't think is a lot to ask. And you know what? I just thought of a brand new, maybe this will be a Christmas present this year. I thought of a brand new in-studio decoration for John. It's like, those OSHA signs that say days since last incident? It's going to say days since last optimistic John.
Oh my God. And I couldn't even tell you.
We may get to years. We may, and I think, if history repeats itself, it resets right around this time every year, right? The off-season
I was going to say.
The optimism builds. It comes. And then the question really is, how long until it deteriorates? And I think every year, the past, since we've been doing the podcast the last 3 years, it has faded quicker and quicker every year.
It's been early and early. I mean, it's week 1, Shane. It's
you just said 2:30. That's not even halfway through the first game.
It was an hour and 30 minutes into the season, yep. Or into the NFL Sunday, yep. So I would love that as a gift. I think that would be fantastic. We should start a little fun together to get that going. Nice bright neon electronic sign behind me. But yeah, no, that's enough. I don't want to talk about this team anymore tonight. I'm sweating right now from the yelling about it and everything. But no, Seamus, I will say before we wrap up here, if you haven't noticed, we're trying to change things up a little bit in this new season, trying to keep it a little more cash, but still trying to deliver the same energy and takes that we've been giving at least all year last year and the year before that. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. But
yeah, I think the focus is to try some new things. The format may change week to week, or it may not. It's a little bit more up in the air, like John said, a little more casual.
And we got to be fluid too. I mean, there's a lot going on. We just happen to have every single event that you could ever plan the same month in September. So trying to work our way through that, and we'll kind of roll with the punches.
And I'll wrap it up with a little coach speak for you. We're going to control what we can control, and those factors are talking about the Giants and Packers for at least a little bit every week. And that's what it's going to be. And the way in which we do that, and the length for which we do that, and whether we add more to that or less to that, that remains to be seen.
That's it. And you know what? Podcast to podcast, there might be some adjustments that need to be made. I just might have to go back and watch the film.
You might have to. And for our sake, I hope we actually do, because otherwise we're not going to get better.
Exactly.
With that
Yeah,
said,
I
though,
think that does it though.
yeah,
Sorry,
you know,
we were both ready to wrap this sucker up. That was
we
we were kind
are.
of on par right
Well,
there.
you know what? It was a great week of football, despite what happened with the Giants and a few other games. Holistically, great week of football. Honestly, they couldn't have drawn it up any better. The opening
Yeah,
night, Thursday night, with Cowboys Eagles, obviously minus the delay. Prior to the delay, great game. Chiefs Chargers in Brazil, fantastic. Opening slate 1 o'clock games on Sunday. Steelers Jets, great game, awesome.
that was a phenomenal game. Yep.
Quarterback play from two guys I don't think anybody was expecting, fantastic. High scoring, a lot of fun. Also, two quarterbacks from opposing teams who played for the other team last year. How many times has that happened in NFL history?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Obviously, Packers at 4 o'clock was great. Sunday night with the Bills, fantastic comeback against the Ravens. It just like they stacked games, and then last night with the two young
Yeah.
studs at quarterback, Caleb and JJ
Oh my
McCarthy.
god.
What an unbelievable first week of football.
I know. I was so ready to say too, like, wow, man, one of the primetime games in week one didn't live up to the bill. It was really a stinker. The Bears took care of business and,
Yep.
showed them. But JJ McCarthy, man, made
Yep.
some believers last night.
He did. He certainly did. So we've got a lot to look forward to, despite what John may make you believe with the Giants. Hopefully,
Sorry,
there's
everyone.
hopefully there's some positivity there, and we can bring you onto the Packers trajectory soon. But otherwise, I think that pretty much does it for this first episode of season 3, Decleated.
I think so. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram, X, and TikTok at Decleated Pod to stay up to date with any Decleated news, new episodes, etc. And we will talk to you guys on the next episode.